Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Homage to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Homage to most respected, venerable Acharya Dhammarakkhita, our teacher and founder. Homage to Mahatera Kassapa Bhanteji, president of the Mahabodhi Society, and all the Bhikkhu Sangha here at Bangalore, Mahabodhi Society Bangalore, and in other regions of India, Bhikkhus, Sangha all over the world, Samaneras, Anagarikas, Upasakas and Upasikas, and Kapiyas everywhere. A very happy Vesak to you all. This full moon day of May is when we celebrate the Vesak in this Buddha era of 2566. It is celebrated on different days around the world in conjunction with the full moon, and often coinciding with weekend times in various places. Here in Bangalore at the Mahabodhi Society, we celebrate it and have been celebrating it for a long time in the tradition of Acharya Dhammarakkhita, our founder, for 7 days. So we have a week-long celebration for Vesak. So we are celebrating along with many other Buddhist monasteries around the world at the same time. And it is a wonderful time for us, and actually with all that's going on, kind of extends to the whole month. So we enjoy this event all around the world. It's the biggest and holiest Buddhist day. What is it, and why do we celebrate it in such fashion? Well, what we're actually reflecting upon is the birth date of the Buddha, our teacher, our first teacher, the day of his enlightenment, and the day of his parinibbana, or his final death day. These 3 days are significant moments in anybody's life, and in other religions are also celebrated. Usually the birth, the death, not usually a specific single day, as with the Buddha, which is his day of enlightenment. The birth is quite miraculous in itself in regards to the Buddha's story, and so is his final passing, his death, his parinibbana. But today I'd like to concentrate on what happened in between, and specifically on enlightenment and how that helps us in this day and age, 2,566 years later, as modern people going about our daily business, and also as monks ourselves, the Bhikkhu Sangha, the training monks all over the world in different monasteries. So let's look at what's happened. We've already been born, all of us, everybody listening, everybody watching has had birth. We know about that. We might not remember it, but we have been born. We are all going to die, that is for sure. That is the one thing we know for sure. Aging, sickness, and death. This is life. The Buddha taught that there is suffering, and his initial inspiration to go out and seek enlightenment was brought about by him witnessing, I'm not going to go into the full background story, but witnessing firsthand a man, old, an aging man, a very ill man, a dead man, and a monk. Now, the monk is quite significant in that this is where the Buddha saw how we can be a little bit free from suffering. So, what happens with ourselves? Well, we've been born, that's happened, that's past, that's nothing we can do about that. Here we are. We know we're going to die, that's for sure. So now what we do in between is the important part. And this is where we have to look at how we can use and understand what the Buddha has taught us to reach our goal. Well, what is our goal? Okay, I'm going to be bold and say that our goal is to be free from suffering in this lifetime, or even bolder and say to become enlightened. Okay, so I'm from England, a long way away, and I'm currently in India. So maybe I'm from a long line of English hippies coming to India to, as a religious seeker, to see the light. But I actually started practicing Buddhism a long time before this. And firstly, I began with meditation. So we have lots of different monks, and they have different areas of expertise and interests. Some like to study, some like to meditate, some like to do some practical work, and some, basically we all vary, like out in lay life as ordinary people are all different, so are monks. And this is how communities work. They balance each other out. But to get back to the basics of what we're trying to achieve, if we know we have a goal that is to be free from suffering, we need to understand what suffering is. When you understand what suffering is, then you're more likely to understand your goal and more easily able to get there. So what is suffering? Suffering is wanting something you haven't got, or having something you don't want. It's just that. So if you have a pain in your knee, you don't want it. That is suffering. If you want a new car and you can't afford it, then you might call that suffering. It's really not, but some people would find this is a little bit unsatisfactory. And we have a Pali word for suffering. It's dukkha. We translate it into English as suffering, but that translation in itself is a little bit unsatisfactory, and unsatisfactory is a better translation of dukkha than suffering, because it literally means off-center, like a wheel on an axle, slightly off-center, would wobble a little and not travel along smoothly. So what the Buddha really taught was the unsatisfactoriness of the nature of unsatisfactoriness in life for all beings. So this basic teaching, firstly, was split into the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Now, I'll just quickly tell you that the Four Noble Truths, that there is suffering, a cause of suffering, there is an end to suffering, and a path leading to the end of suffering. There are many, many talks, books, details of this that one can research. But if we just look at it as understanding that we cannot get away from the fact that things are unsatisfactory, if everything was always satisfactory and everything was perfect, we were content and always happy, we wouldn't be talking now, we wouldn't be listening to this, and we'd have no problems. But we know there is always some kind of niggling doubt or some problem in the background. So the Buddha taught suffering and the end of suffering. Now, what did he teach there? The Eightfold Path. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but just a part of it we will go into in some detail, because today what I want to look at is, going back to what I said firstly, our goal. which is to be free from suffering, to become enlightened, let's say. So this Eightfold Path is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Now, it's the last two I want to look at in some detail. In fact, the last one. But firstly, let me just explain how this is normally summed up. It's normally split into three categories, which the Pali words for are Sila, Samadi, and Panya. Now, Sila is moral virtue, and Samadi sums up meditation. Panya means wisdom. So Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the three categories of the Eightfold Path, are discipline, meditation, and wisdom. Basically, in other words, don't harm anything, meditate, and become wise. Now, it's easy to say that. There are lots of obstacles in our way. But let's have a look at where we go with this. Excuse me, do we have any water? Glass of water? So, excuse me 1 minute. So, so I've just asked for some water. I'm in an environment I'm not usually used to because there's nobody here. I'm just looking at a camera, which is a rather strange experience for me. I'm normally used to talking to people. However, this is a part of life also. We adjust, we understand, we look at how we're feeling, and we get on. So let's, as it's Vesak, look at those three categories in conjunction with Sila, Samadhi, Panya, in conjunction with Vesak. Sila, we're born, birth, so the birth date, we're born with intact Sila as innocent little babies, having not really done any harm. We're not enlightened, but we have a clear and open and receptive mind, brain, physical brain to learn. And we pick up a lot of learning very quickly, purely because our brains are very empty and ready to receive. Like an empty glass can take a lot of water, but a full glass full of information, you can get very little or no water into it. So they have this almost open aspect as little babies to learn. So we learn to speak, walk, talk, do all of these things. And then we hope at the end of all this to die a wise person, having learned through this existence. Please excuse me. Thank you. So carrying on then. Just quickly, Sila, as I said, is discipline, moral virtue. In Buddhism, it's just covered by 5 precepts for lay Buddhists. So ordinary people who are practicing Buddhists, they agree, or they decide they can take the 5 precepts officially, or they can just live this life where they do not kill. I mean, just going to sum them up, but they don't kill, they don't steal, they refrain from sexual misconduct, they don't lie, and they don't partake or take any intoxicants. Now, these 5 specifics can either be focused in on very narrowly, like I've just said, don't kill, don't steal, and so on, or they can be broadened out into much broader horizons. For instance, it could be don't kill, could be don't harm all living beings, and don't steal could be make sure that, you know, everything's really offered to you, as it is in the case with the monks here. However, for the purposes of what we're talking about this evening, let's just say that the moral precepts, these 5 precepts, just those, really just mean do no harm. If you do no harm, either to yourself or to anybody else, because yourself is just as important, then you will not be breaking any of those precepts. If you break one of those precepts, you're going to be harming yourself or others. But it can be summed up with do no harm, which is why I say just do no harm, meditate and become wise is the English version really of Sila, Samadi, Panya in an easy to understand fashion. So the moral virtues, discipline, Sila, is quite a logical thing. We know ourselves, however you interpret the specifics of any moral virtues written down in any religion, really, however you interpret them, we know in our heart of hearts, we know if we're doing something that either harms ourselves or harms other people or harms both. We know when we're doing good and we know when we're doing bad. So it's only for us to know, and anything other than doing good is only really doing bad to your own mental development, and therefore distracting away from our goal towards freedom from suffering or enlightenment. Now, I keep using the word enlightenment. Right? Sometimes in the West, people find that a little bit, let's say, optimistic. But as it's Waisak, I'm choosing to use it. It's kind of a celebratory word, enlightenment. And who would turn it down? But I'll come to Samadhi, the second aspect of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, in just a moment, because I just want to cover wisdom. It's by far just as important. There are three categories, as I said. So really, if you give importance equally to each three categories, in the Eightfold Path, Sila is covered by right view and right intention, right speech. Wisdom, and wisdom is covered by right view, right intention, right speech, and right action covers Sila. Right effort is sometimes wisdom and sometimes attributed to Samadhi, but the last three, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, attribute to Samadhi. So you can split it up in those ways. But simply, we have divided it by three. Wisdom is a big part of it. It's very important. And we can look at this in a huge amount of detail, and you'll see there are libraries, institutes, there are universities, there are millions and millions of talks on YouTube these days. There are all sorts of educational resources to learn information and to gain knowledge. But wisdom isn't really all about gaining knowledge or intelligence, let's say, because intelligence, knowledge is really just borrowed. When we die, that's the end of that. We need to attain, as I said earlier, the one sure thing is we will reach the end of our lives and we will die. And we need to attain wisdom in order to deal with that as comfortably as possible. And whether we just die and that's the end of it and we're satisfied with what we've done in this life, or whether we believe we go on to other things, without wisdom, we will be, unfortunately, not as comfortable and as happy as we could be, as we would be with wisdom. In summation, what the Buddha's idea of wisdom is, what he taught, was what he discovered in his enlightenment and what we hope to discover in our enlightenment or our awakening and fully understand. And that is the faculties, the three faculties of existence. In Pali, anicca, dukkha, anatta, but in English, basically impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and out of our control. Everything in this world, all conditioned things, from mountains, forests, to little insects, everything is impermanent. The universe is impermanent. It wasn't always here and it won't always be here. We are obviously impermanent. Right down to our emotions, they're impermanent. One day we're happy, one day we're sad. 1 minute we're happy, 1 minute we're sad. Are we running out of time? Sorry? Oh, okay. So, do you want to say something? Okay. I think we've got time. I'm not sure. So, if you excuse me, you'll have to give me some instructions. You can't just plonk me. Okay, so sorry about the interruption. I'm not really sure how these situations work. I'm unfamiliar in a different country and in a very new position here doing this. So, giving us this opportunity to understand wisdom. Right, wisdom. A wise person is going to understand that everything's impermanent, that everything is unsatisfactory and out of our control. And we develop this understanding through meditation. Now, again, there's many writings, and you could even Wikipedia, Google search Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, and it will give you a very good explanation of those things. But what the Buddha really taught, and what we've learned in Buddhism from the Buddha's teaching, is the practice. Now, what is the practice? This is meditation. Now, meditation is the last two factors, sometimes considered the last three factors of the Eightfold Path, right? Effort, because it requires effort, but more so enthusiasm and energy. But sati, which is mindfulness, it's translated as mindfulness, and samadhi, which is translated as concentration or one-pointedness. Now, I want to talk about samadhi first, because it doesn't get much of a spot, really. It doesn't get much limelight, samadhi. It is, however, it might come last in the numbers of 1 to 8 in the Eightfold Path, but it is, in fact, where we begin. If we're to achieve sati, mindfulness, its true translation really is recollection, but it's recollecting what we're feeling, what we're seeing clearly at the time. And sometimes we hear the word vipassana meditation, vipassana courses, and vipassana this and vipassana that, and that's based sort of on insight meditation, based in looking intuitively at your feelings, your emotions, both bodily and mentally, and your reactions and everything that goes on in your life with mindfulness and understanding. And this is very important. Now, we need, though, the one-pointedness and concentration of mind to be able to do that. And the way we develop this is through samadhi meditation, which is why it's Sila, Samadi, Panya, not Sila, Sati, Panya, or Sila, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. It's Samadhi. So I like this word, Samadhi. It's a beautiful word. It isn't easily translatable, but in itself, I get the feeling when someone says Samadhi, I'm going to develop Samadhi at that point. This is something I say to myself, now is the time for Samadhi. And it's important. From this, we develop the strength, the focus, and the tools to investigate and develop sati, which is mindfulness. So yes, they're both equally important. They're like two sides of the same hand. One doesn't work without the other. But for now, we're going to talk about samadhi and how that frees us from suffering in this lifetime. And more excitingly, how that can free us from suffering at really any given moment, if we choose to, if we practice it well. So not like the gym or going running, jogging, where we decide one day, oh, we'll get fit, so we need to go and do some exercise. Some people might decide, oh, I'm going to practice meditation, or I'll go and sit in samadhi for hours at a zendo and really suffer, and that'll do me good. No, not like that. This will just result in you, after some time, giving up and going back to your ordinary ways. What you really need is something really enjoyable, something that you really want to do. One teacher did say, when is the good time to meditate? When you don't want to meditate is a good time to meditate. When you do want to meditate is a good time to meditate. Of course, always is a good time to meditate, but what you really need is to want to meditate, To always be saying, my first meditation teacher's mantra was, I should be meditating, simply that in English. And to always be saying in the back of your mind, I should be meditating, is not a bad thing, because there aren't any opportunities in our lives, however busy we are, where we can't take a few seconds, take a breath, and think about meditation. Now, if we spend some time meditating formally, sitting in a comfortable posture and practicing samadhi in accordance with meditation instructions given to you by a good meditation teacher, then, or even just practicing by yourself, if you feel confident, then by doing this regularly, you can incorporate those skills that you develop into your everyday life. Now, like I said earlier, it's easier said than done, but if I just explain how it really works, if you split meditation into four stages, and if you've heard of jhanas, don't get this confused. This is not what I'm talking about yet. We've got a long way to go. But simply with meditation, we have a situation where we might at first have to encourage ourselves just to give it a try. It will be a little bit difficult. There will be all sorts of obstacles in our way. We call these kileshas or defilements. These have a root cause. Defilements, the root cause of defilements, which are namely greed, hatred, and delusion, I can really sum up as being desire. And desire is, back to those Four Noble Truths, the main cause of suffering. It is the cause of suffering. From the minute we're born with desire. Now, all desire isn't bad. I'm not saying that. But unsatisfied desire is the nature of unsatisfactoriness. So it is in meditation whereby we focus the mind and we concentrate and we develop our ability to this concentrated one-pointedness to see things clearly, to see where desire is arising, to see what it is we desire, to see whether it's to desire something we haven't got that we want, or to desire to not have something that we have, to then apply our wisdom that we have gained, knowing that it is impermanent. If it's something we don't want, we should know that this feeling is impermanent and therefore will pass. If it's something we really want, this desire, even when satisfied, is likewise impermanent and will pass. So seeing this reality of all things takes the edge off the desire, just softens it a little. And this we see clearly once we've developed this concentrated mind. So quickly, I'm going to give you a little story of going to the cinema, going to see the films, going to the movies. It's a long time since I've been to the cinema, so they may be different now. But let's say we're looking forward to going for a night out. And this is my way of encouraging people to look at meditation in a positive way. It's not going to the gym. It's not going for a long run. It's not building up a sweat. It's really, really, really enjoying yourself and relaxing. And this is what we do if we were to decide to go out to the movies. Now, we'll equate this going out to the movies with the 4 stages of Samadhi. I'm not sure because I don't have a clock at the time I have. So I'll try and do it quickly, and or I'll try and do it slowly. But I'm getting no feedback, so we'll just carry on. So say you're looking forward to going to the movies, and you're getting ready, and you go out and off you go. You go towards the cinema. When you arrive, you get to the cloakroom, the ticket office, or the entrance, let's say, to this cinema. And this is where you enter with your enthusiasm. You walk into the cinema enthusiastic about the film, the movie you're going to see. You go to the cloakroom, we call it, I think you do too, and you get rid of your jackets, your coats, your umbrellas, your baggage, and maybe some shopping you brought with you. You put all this down. You leave all this in the cloakroom. You're not going to take it into the movie with you. You don't need that. That stays there firmly at the entrance of the cinema. Similarly, when we sit down on the cushion to meditate, we sit down and we go, we're going to drop all of our baggage. We're going to leave the past there in the cloakroom. We're going to leave the past behind us. Nothing we can do about it now. No point thinking about it. We're not going to take the worries of the future in there with us either, into our meditation or even into the cinema. We're not taking our shopping with us, our umbrella. No need. Leave it all there in the cloakroom. We let go. We put the baggage down. This is where we first get to feel good. We start to relax. This feeling of, that's better. I put everything down. Now I can go enjoy the movie, enjoy the ride, enjoy the show, have a good evening. And this is where we start to really get enthusiastic about what we're about to do. Watch a movie or meditate. Let's see. I mean, they call that stage of meditation, the first stage of meditation, Kanika Samadhi, which is momentary concentration. You're just really realizing you don't need all this baggage, putting it down. You're not taking the past, you're not taking the future into your meditation. You're not taking anything that doesn't need to be there for, let's say, the next 20 minutes or 40 minutes that you're choosing to meditate for, or 1 hour or 3 hours. It doesn't matter. Nothing will change. It'll all be there waiting for you when you come back. So then you go into the vestibule, foyer, big entrance area of this cinema, where they have all kinds of snacks, drinks, the sort of thing, popcorn, thumbs up, Sprite, Fanta, all of this stuff, which you're going to certainly pick up some of these things. Maybe one of these things is your favorite. And you're picking these up to make your experience of the film, the movie you're going to watch, more enjoyable. And really to just help take your mind off the baggage you've just left in the cloakroom, and as a little bit of a distraction whilst you settle into the film. Now, this could be also considered like your meditation object. You may have heard that expression. The most common is in a meditation practice called Anapana Samadhi, which is watching the breath. So the breath is one of the most useful and commonly used meditation objects, simply watching the breathing in and the breathing out. But the Buddha gave us 40 different meditation objects to choose from. It's a bit like the selection in this foyer of the cinema. All of these things you can take with you, and you choose something that's comfortable for you. And I'd always recommend that the breath is useful because it's always there. Even when you've finished meditating, you've got it with you. So you select your meditation object or your snacks, and you think, I will be going into the movie. You're getting more and more enthusiastic about seeing the film, or you're getting more enthusiastic about sitting and meditating for some time. This is what we call Parikama Samadhi, or preliminary concentration. So we've had momentary concentration, just being able to concentrate a little bit. Preliminary concentration is where you're building it up a little bit more firmly into something more defined. You put your 100% attention on the movie you're about to go and watch, for example. So this initial focus on your meditation object, you're going to take into the movie with you. Your popcorn of the movie, or your breath, you're watching the breath in meditation. You start watching this movie, and at first you have to get into it. It doesn't straight away grab your attention, which is why they usually put some exciting little scenes at the beginning to grab your attention. And similarly in meditation, at first you feel quite uncomfortable, you've got some pains coming, you find it difficult to watch your meditation object, but you just settle. You've bought a ticket, you know the movie's so long, there's nothing you can do. Settle, sit in your seat, make yourself comfortable, and get prepared to enjoy the film. And this is what we do. So in the cinema, the movie begins, your interest develops, and what happens? As your interest develops in the movie, the distractions that you had outside, they stay outside. If some came with you, if a worry of what went on during the past 24 hours was bothering you still, as the movie develops, as it becomes more interesting, that concern, that worry, it just disappears into the background. The movie's more interesting because it's distracting you from those things. So it's good distraction. There's nothing wrong with distraction. We'll come to that a little bit in a minute. But this is where we really start to get comfortable. As these distractions, these problems from outside drop away, then you can really start to get into this film, into this movie, and into this meditation. Now, in meditation, we have only 5 things that are distractions or obstacles to us attaining samadhi, or to our just meditation in general. In fact, these, we call them 5 hindrances, 5 obstacles. These are actually 5 hindrances, 5 obstacles in our everyday lives, not just in meditation. You can apply them to all situations. It's another whole talk, hindrances, the 5 hindrances, and dealing with them. So we're just summarizing them at the moment. But these 5 hindrances are a sort of sensual desire. So just commonly desire, wanting things like something to drink, something to eat, or to go and watch a movie. You know, these kind of things that draw us in, to feel better. The second one is ill will, which can sometimes be defined as hatred, but it's more realistically looked at as just not liking something, or not liking someone, or not liking a feeling or an emotion, just being uncomfortable, not wanting something. So it's a little bit like the first 2 are wanting something, and the second one is not wanting something. The third one is, they use old-fashioned English terms in English called sloth and torpor, which just means tiredness, lethargy, lethargicness, no energy. Really, where this comes about from is no enthusiasm, not necessarily no sleep. Because you see, you can be very, very tired. You can travel for hours on an aeroplane. You can travel all across the country on a bus. If you're going somewhere really nice when you get there, you really wake up and you really enjoy yourself and you're full of energy. It may catch up with you later, but it's about enthusiasm, which gives us energy. And there are techniques in meditation to counteract this third hindrance. One of the easiest ones to counteract actually is tiredness. Then the fourth one is restlessness and worry. Now, all this really is worrying about the future and the past. It's bringing the past and the future. Your restlessness is about worrying about the future. Your worry is worrying about the past. Now, each time you sit down to meditate, try and leave those behind. When they occur, when you start worrying about, oh, what is going to happen to me at work tomorrow? What if my boss finds out that I didn't go back into the office after lunch? You know, when you start worrying about these things, say to yourself, what good will it do me now? If you're having a really good time at the movies, watching a film, this you'd forget about until after the movie. So this is where we build up our meditation to such a level, it's enjoyable. And this is where we can learn to be free from suffering in these very moments that occur, only momentarily, but this is the exciting part. And this is where we move on to the next stage. In fact, that stage of the third stage of Samadhi, they call Upachara Samadhi. And it's where these 5 hindrances really do drop away. And your concentration on the meditation object becomes very, very good, very, very single-pointed and focused, to the point that you become absorbed. So when you sit and you watch this film, after the initial few minutes, half an hour, and it really gets interesting, you become absorbed. Nothing really distracts you. And the film may go on for another hour and a half. It may go on for an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 50 minutes. And during that time, are your knees giving you pain? Are you having to scratch yourself all over the place? Are you needing to do all this and do that? No, you're really absorbed in the movie. So those hindrances, those things that arise to distract our meditation, in this simile of the movie, it's not happening because you've got that interest, that enthusiasm about the movie. And this is what we develop in our meditation object eventually with practice. So at this point, you will start to feel good. And as I kind of suggested, this is how you can free yourself from a little bit of suffering during the day at any point by these simple techniques. So if you think in meditation at first, well, what is my goal? Oh, it's to become single-pointed, focused, is to become enlightened. You really need to understand that in tangible, understandable terms. So think of this. You've watched a really, really, really good movie, and it's the highlight climax, best part of the movie, and you feel real joy if it's a joyous movie, or satisfaction, happiness. If you're listening to your very favorite music, or you've heard, more importantly, if you're listening to some music and a track, a piece of music comes along that you haven't heard for some time, and it's one of your favorite tunes or pieces of music, you will be filled physically in your body with a feeling of joy, of pleasure. And this feeling of pleasure is an actually good physical feeling. And you can probably relate to this, where you've listened to some music, and, oh, yes, that's good. But then after a while, it goes away, because then the music gets boring and you have to put another piece of music on. And similarly, the movie comes to an end. But at the end of the movie, when you leave the cinema, you still feel good. You feel you've benefited from it. Otherwise, we'd never go again. Because, of course, our physical brains, our chemicals, our serotonin and our dopamine and all of these hormonal chemicals in our bodies have been working and giving us those good feelings, which are to some extent what causes addictions and why we have to repeat entertainment over and over again, whether it's movies or TV or games or this and that. But if you can apply that to meditation, then it's a much more wholesome activity, because you are developing something in addition to just the physical pleasure. You also produce mental pleasure, mental joy, sukha, happiness. And after all, enlightenment is to find happiness. What is happiness? Happiness is just a symptom of contentment. Like sadness is a symptom of not being content. So if you haven't got something you want, you're sad. If you've got something you really want, for a moment, you're happy. Understanding the real nature of these physical things, that they are impermanent and ultimately therefore unsatisfactory and out of your control, gives you wisdom to know not to become attached to those pleasures. You can still enjoy them very much, but to let them go at the end of it. But where we can take refuge, where we can come home to, is that mantra I mentioned earlier, I should be meditating. We can take refuge in meditation, more importantly, in Samadhi. Samadhi is coming home. Okay, you've had a good afternoon, you've had a good evening out at the movies, you've become absorbed in the movie, the movie's finished, you've left, you're filled with joy, and it was a money well spent. Now, in meditation, you sit, you relax, you find comfort in the body, and you start to watch the meditation object. And as you sit, you become more aware of the meditation object, less aware of the hindrances. Like more aware of the movie, less aware of what you left outside. Now, not instantly, this takes practice. So 20 minutes every day, sitting just with a good guided meditation, something like this, but with the discipline to do this every day. This is where right effort can come in, if you interpret it as that. But if you get the benefit of the experience of Samadhi, even to just the second stage of Samadhi, So Parikama Samadhi, so preliminary concentration. Even in fact, Kanika Samadhi can be a relaxation at the end of a busy day. Come home, put your shopping and your baggage down, put your work down, sit down, have a cup of tea, watch the television, read a book. This is the same. Your moment, relaxing. This is the initial stage of meditation. Soon, when you sit down in your meditation place, on your meditation cushion, you will have that same feeling. And when you experience a more calming and more pleasurable effect of the second and third stages of meditation, you will want to do that more and more often, because it too becomes addictive, but in a wholesome way. It isn't costing us anything, and it's only doing us good. It's developing our mental capabilities, our concentration. This in turn helps us with learning, which helps develop wisdom. Later on, you can discover through this samadhi that you can delve very deeply into your understanding and become very insightful. And this is where the true enlightenment comes from. Enlightenment in terms of the stages of enlightenment, where you fully understand the Four Noble Truths, not just in whatever language, as in suffering, end of suffering, suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, and path leading to end of suffering in 10 different languages. It's not that, it's understanding what that means. There is suffering, but there's an end of suffering. And only through experience do we learn this. We don't learn this in a book. We have to sit and experience the end of suffering, even for a moment, to really know it. And then wisdom arises, which is the knowledge, the full knowledge of anicca, dukkha, anatta, that all things, emotions and physical things, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control. So given this and this incentive, and knowing how easy it is, you can really ignore the paperwork. You can stop reading, you can put the books down, and just spend some time, sit on a cushion and watch the breath. The Buddha said that all the learning to be done is in this fathom-length body. So this bag of skin and bones that we have here can show us everything we need to know. We have this physical body, we have this physical brain and thinking mind, and we have this heart mind. Now, this heart mind is what knows. This is where true wisdom lies, with what is the knower. You can have all the knowledge under the sun, all of the information. But like I said, this is just temporary. We borrow information, we borrow knowledge, qualifications. But if we know ourselves, we know our emotions, we know what's knowing them, then we are seeing this heart mind, this true understanding. Let me explain. If you're sad, you know you're sad. If you're happy, you know you're happy. Now we know what happiness is, we know what sadness is, contentment or not being content. But what knows you're happy? What knows you're sad? Well, whatever knows you're happy isn't happy. Whatever knows you're sad isn't sad. Whatever knows isn't affected by any emotion. Whatever knows isn't affected by any physical feeling. But it knows how your physical body is affected and how your emotions are affected. This is true wisdom. This is where true wisdom lies. This is the citta. This is another whole subject, a big, big subject. But this is just simply described as knowing the knower. And when we know the knower, which you can only witness in samadhi, then you are going a long way towards becoming enlightened. Now, excuse me. I think I may have tried to cover just a little bit too much in one session. I apologize for that, forgive me. That's my inexperience of talking to something that doesn't talk back. there may be other opportunities to do this again, or maybe not. But what I'd encourage you to do is, and what I encourage anyone to do, is not take my word for it, not read it in a book, but do what the Buddha said. Experience it for yourself, to be experienced by the wise. So yes, sit, meditate, experience it. Practice Samadhi. And there are many, many options for you to help you with that. Many things on the internet, on YouTube, and so on and so forth. And there's never an excuse of I haven't got enough time. Simply just get up a little bit earlier, go to bed a little bit later. You can find easily an hour in any day. Take half an hour at the beginning and the end. 10 minutes in your lunchtime, 10 minutes instead of having a cup of tea in the afternoon. It's quite easy. You can find time to meditate. Always think, I should be meditating. Just quickly, long time before, well, before I was even a Buddhist, before I knew about Buddhism even, really, I was a meditator. And I had that mantra in my head, I should be meditating, I should be meditating. But there was always something not quite right, because although my teacher was a monk previously, I didn't know this, he was disrobed and he was teaching secular, so non-religious, non-Buddhist meditation. But because he came from a monastic background, it was the same teaching, just without the labels. So I was doing the same thing without the labels. And then when I discovered I was put in touch with Buddhism more directly, I said, oh, well, I'm already a Buddhist, and this is what I've already been doing for some years. And it was easy to carry on, but it opened up a whole new world and answered a lot of questions that were previously unanswered. So if you can only encourage yourself to meditate for that a little bit of time each day and keep that up, I can say to you for sure, if you meditate every day for 1 hour for a few days, and then you continue that for a few weeks, and then you continue that for a few months, you will see immediate benefits. You will see immediate benefits after 3 days, I can promise you that. After 3 weeks of doing that, you won't want to stop this meditation activity. But it does require that absolute discipline of doing it every day, no excuses. This is where you do need to have some kind of guided meditation teacher or a group, kalyanamita, so spiritual friendships, wise friends, to help you with this and to encourage you. But if you understand a little bit of meditation, sit down, meditate, do it every day, and your life will improve. And then when you're in an awkward situation, when it's a difficult situation, you can then bring your attention back to a meditation object. You can breathe in, breathe out, maybe do that a few times, and you will feel that physical pleasure, that mental joy. However awful the situation you're in, however stressful, however difficult, even with pain, if you've developed that technique on the meditation cushion, you can use it on the hospital bed. So when it comes to your time to die, which is a sure thing, you won't suffer so much, and you won't cling so much, and you'll be free. And this freedom from suffering in this lifetime, which is our goal. So I think I have to end it there. Please forgive me if I've rambled a little and seemed a little confused with the new environment. Anything I've said of interest, please use it or forget it. It's up to you. But it's been nice talking to you in a way. And I don't think we say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to our own talks, but I will say for listening to you, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.